The entire restaurant fell silent when the manager pointed to the door and told the young waitress to leave immediately. In her arms, a tiny baby began to cry softly. Customers watched the painful scene unfold, but no one spoke except one quiet man sitting in the corner, a man whose next decision would change everything. The dinner rush at the restaurant was always intense. Plates clattered, customers talked loudly, and waiters hurried between tables carrying trays filled with steaming meals. Among them was Emily, one of the most hardworking waitresses in the entire place. Emily arrived early every morning and often stayed later than anyone else. She moved quickly, smiled at customers, and never complained even when the work became overwhelming. But few people knew the quiet struggle she carried outside the restaurant. Emily was a single mother. Her baby Noah was barely 6 months old. Most days, she managed to leave him with a neighbor who watched children in their apartment building. But that evening, the neighbor had suddenly fallen ill. Emily had searched desperately for someone else to help, but no one was available. Missing a shift meant losing money she desperately needed for rent and food. So she made a difficult decision. She carefully placed Noah in a small carrier and kept him in the staff room during her shift. Between serving tables, she would quickly step in to check on him. Most customers never noticed. Emily worked twice as fast, determined not to cause any problems. For a while, everything seemed fine, but babies have their own timing. Halfway through the dinner rush, Noah began to cry. At first, it was soft, then louder. The sound drifted through the kitchen and into the dining area. The restaurant manager, Mr. Harris, immediately stormed toward the back. "What is that noise?" he demanded. Emily rushed to the staff room and gently lifted Noah, rocking him carefully. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quietly. "My babysitter got sick today. I didn't want to miss my shift. I'll keep him quiet, I promise." Mr. Harris's face hardened. "This is a restaurant, not a daycare," he snapped. "I understand, sir. Please, just tonight. I really need this job." But the manager had already made up his mind. "If customers hear a crying baby, it ruins the experience," he said coldly. "You should have stayed home. Pack your things. You're fired." The words hit Emily like a storm. Her hands trembled as she held Noah close. Around them, several staff members watched in silence. A few customers nearby had also heard the conversation. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I've worked here for 2 years," she whispered. "I've never missed a shift." "Then you should have thought about that before bringing a baby to work," Mr. Harris replied sharply. With no more words left to say, Emily slowly picked up her small bag. She wrapped a blanket around Noah and walked toward the restaurant door. The room felt heavy, with silence. At a quiet table near the window sat a man who had watched everything. He had been sitting there for nearly an hour, dressed simply in a dark coat. Most people in the restaurant didn't recognize him, but his name was Daniel Carter. And Daniel Carter was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city. He had come to the restaurant for a quiet meal after a long meeting. At first, he barely noticed the staff moving around him, but when the baby cried, his attention shifted. And when he heard the manager fire Emily, he didn't look away. He watched her walk slowly toward the door, shoulders heavy with defeat. Something about the moment felt painfully familiar to him. Years ago, his own mother had worked 2 jobs to support him after his father died. He remembered the exhaustion in her eyes and the quiet strength she carried every single day. As Emily reached the door, Daniel stood up. The sound of his chair moving drew attention across the room. He walked calmly to the front counter where Mr. Harris was standing. "I'd like to speak with you for a moment," Daniel said. The manager forced a polite smile. "Of course, sir. Is there a problem with your meal?" Daniel glanced toward the door where Emily was about to leave. "Yes," he said calmly. "There is." The entire restaurant seemed to lean closer. "I just witnessed you fire one of your hardest working employees," Daniel continued. "Not because she was lazy, not because she was rude to customers, but because she's a mother trying to survive." Mr. Harris shifted uncomfortably. "We run a professional establishment," he replied. "Rules are rules." Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand rules," he said. "I also understand leadership. Then he reached into his pocket and placed a business card on the counter. At first, the manager barely glanced at it. Then his eyes widened. The name on the card was unmistakable. Daniel Carter, Carter Hospitality Group, the company that owned dozens of restaurants across the country, including this one. Mr. Harris suddenly looked pale. Daniel spoke calmly. "Effective immediately," he said. "You're no longer the manager of this restaurant." Gasps spread through the dining area. Daniel then turned toward the door. "Emily," he called gently. She stopped and looked back, confused. "Please come back for a moment." She hesitated, unsure what was happening. Slowly, she walked back into the restaurant, holding Noah. Daniel smiled kindly. "I'm sorry you had to experience that tonight," he said. "No one should be punished for working hard and caring for their child." Emily looked stunned. Daniel continued, "If you're willing, I'd like to offer you something better than your old job." The entire room waited. "A management training position with my company," he said, "with full salary, childcare support, and a flexible schedule while your baby is still young." Emily's eyes filled with tears again, but this time, they were tears of relief. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't need to say anything," Daniel replied gently. "Just keep being the hardworking person you already are." The restaurant erupted into quiet applause. And for the first time that evening, Noah stopped crying. Emily held him close, her future suddenly brighter than she could have imagined. Sometimes the world feels harsh and unfair, especially for those quietly doing their best to survive. But moments of kindness, especially from those with the power to act, can change a life forever. Compassion costs nothing, yet its impact can echo for generations. And sometimes, the smallest act of empathy becomes the greatest turning point in someone's story.